Welcome to another episode of the Tapestry podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Froswá, and I've got a special friend today. Y'all know everybody I bring on, I have to love them for them to be on the show. So if you haven't been invited, it's not that I don't love you. It's just that I don't probably love you enough. I need to love you a little bit more. I'm being silly. I got somebody that I adore here today. And so I want to introduce Dr. Marguerite McClinton. We call her Margo, and this is the funny story. I met Margo some years ago, and I never knew her name was Marguerite. I had been calling her Margo forever, and when I found out that was your real name, I was like, who are you talking about? But this is a phenomenal woman that you all need to know and have in your life. Dr. Marguerite Margo McClinton Stoglin is a senior vice president of Philanthropic Strategist with the National Consultant and Advisory Practice Group at Bank of America Private Bank. Based in Dallas, Margo works with the Philanthropic Solutions team, providing custom consulting services to both grantmaking and operating nonprofits. Her areas of expertise include education, social services, and the faith-based community. Margo has served in a number of key roles with nonprofits, including Washington University in St. Louis, Washington Lee University, Paul Quinn, and Ignite National, which is where I remember meeting her first. For a decade, Margo managed her own consulting firm, providing strategic guidance to both nonprofit and for-profit organizations. She also has significant board experience, currently serving with a gubernatorial appointment on a statewide commission. She enjoys partnering with key stakeholders to provide the resources needed to serve all communities. She first received her undergraduate degree from Emory University and has 2 master's degrees. The first is in education from Harvard University, and the second is in business from the University of Texas at Dallas. She also received her doctorate from Florida State University. Margo is brilliant. So I'm looking forward to sharing and talking with you.
You're too kind. Get me all teared up over here. I remember when we first met as well.
Yes. It's been a minute.
It has. And now your baby's all grown.
Oh, God. They grow so fast.
They do.
So let's talk about, you are a mom.
I am a mom.
So how old are your kids?
Well, we have a full house right now. We have Warren, who's 7, and that's 2nd grade. You got to love that. All things reading and exploring math. And then Lillian is 17. She's a junior and she's looking at college and she's really interested in the theater and arts. And then we also have a Japanese student staying with us. When I was a junior in high school, we also hosted AFS student, American Field Service. And so we're keeping the family tradition. So she's a delight and she's also a junior and a great addition to our home. And I can't forget our 2-year-old puppy, Levi.
That is a family member. I'm serious.
Yes. He's quite the personality.
I joke because I have a grand cat.
Yes. Do you ever babysit?
Yes, God. Yes, that's a whole show in itself.
I could imagine.
But now that he has, gotten some things taken care of physically, he's not as rambunctious and it's a delight.
Okay.
But prior to some of the...
I understand.
He was a whole...
handful.
And mess. He was something else, but that's my baby.
Oh.
So how do you juggle motherhood and all the many things that you do? I mean, you're serving on this gubernatorial appointment. For that, you do a lot of things in community. And we'll talk a little bit about your position, but how do you juggle all those things and do motherhood?
Well, one of the things that I think is so important is giving yourself grace and being really honest with yourself about where you are. If you're tired and you have time over the weekend, just use that time to recoup.
Yes.
Don't try to, feel like you have to do that one more activity. And I also think it's so important to remember you can have it all, but maybe not at the same time.
That's a good message.
Yeah, so I've really held fast to that. And then I think communication, we have several calendars in our family. My husband and I share a calendar, and we have tons of conversation. Who's on first? Who's on second? Can you do this? Can I cover here? What are we eating? So it's definitely an ongoing collaboration. We incorporate the kids, with that as well. So we get them involved.
You said something, and I was talking about this earlier, about the balance piece. I think so often it's overrated how we're always on this thing about having this work-life balance. And although it's important to have it, there are seasons in your life that you're not going to always have the ability to just have everything in sync. Sometimes one thing will call you more than another. How have you been able to deal with those seasons of these different demands in your life? What is it that keeps you going and inspires you with all of these different things that you juggle?
That's a great question. I think there's some non-negotiables, right? So there are key meetings you need to meet. There's certain obligations and follow-up that you have to have. I think staying on top of communication is really important and telling people when and when you cannot be there. And then always double checking,
Yeah.
because things can slip by. And then letting people know where you are and they can be supportive to you as well. I think organizations that I work with, they are really good about communicating and reminders and things of that nature. So I think that's very helpful.
You're in a new role.
Yes.
And so when I found out, I was like, oh my gosh, she said Bank of America.
Yes.
Talk about this new position because I've been blessed to watch you do a number of things. You were doing amazing work with Concord.
Thank you.
You know, what you were doing with Ignite. You've done so much.
Thank you.
How did you get to Bank of America and what do you do?
Well, faith is a part of my life, and I don't think that it's any accident that God knows his business. Every role, every position that I had led me to this role now because I work with all types of organizations. I work with churches, I work with large nonprofits, small nonprofits, CEOs. And so there's not really one experience that I cannot speak to or have an ability to provide some guidance or support, particularly in the fundraising space.
You've been doing that, I
Yes.
mean, for a long time. Ignite.
Yes.
You were raising money
Yes.
and getting visibility for this amazing organization that helped young women
Yes.
get off the ground and thinking about politics and thinking about their voice.
Yes.
That seems to be a common theme for you.
Thank you. Yes, I believe in empowering others to be the best they can be and follow their dreams, whatever that may be. And people have poured into me. I mean, whether it be the church or mentors or friends like you. And so it's just paying it forward.
And mentoring, why is that important? Because I know that we hear people talk about these terms of mentors and
Mhm.
coaches and
Mhm. Mhm.
sponsors.
Mhm.
What has that been like for your life?
Well, truly meaningful friendships that become family, right?
Yeah.
And you find that you have the mentee mentor role, but when you're in a true, authentic relationship, you pour back into them just as much as they pour into you. I know one in particular, Sophia Johnson, has just become family, for instance, and there are many others in the community that have really made a difference and poured in my life. Jennifer Chandler with Bank of America, and being a part of a statewide organization like Lyceum, where you meet so many different people who you can talk to and network with, and I think those relationships are so important.
Relationships, that's my thing, and
Yes.
talking about social capital. How has that been important in your journey?
Thank you, thank you. Well, think about just for us, we had a recent conversation that we realized we were sorority sisters, right?
Yes.
And so I think those networks that we've developed over the years, they enrich our lives. We have moments to connect with people, and then it makes the world smaller. In many cases, I can go anywhere in the world and meet a sorority sister or meet people that are connected, and it really can make a difference. So I just would say that when you think about networks and that social capital, it has to be authentic. You can't always leverage, relationships just for your own personal gain. We are all working collaboratively to make the community better. And I think that should be the ultimate goal and focus.
Yeah, because sometimes people see the relationships being like the networking.
Hmm.
That is solely about transaction, and
Right.
I don't think people look at relationships as transformative.
Mm-mm. I think people have been surprised. I'm still dear friends with a lot of the people that I called upon to invest and support the organizations we love, right?
Mhm.
And we go to lunches together. We continue to communicate, and I think that speaks to it's not just about what can I get from you, and we work with each other in many different avenues. And I think synergizing on information too, because there may be times in the community where you can learn about something that's going on and you can be supportive to it, or vice versa.
You helped through Ignite. I wanna talk about all these young women that you've helped, and I remember going to a conference that you did at Texas Wesleyan
Yeah.
and seeing the impact that you had on these young women. All of your work feeds on this idea of impact and making a difference. If you think about your own life and all the lessons, because these girls learned lessons when they were at this conference and do that work.
You're having me go down memory lane. I'm getting all
Yes.
choked up over here.
Yes, I'm gonna take you there.
You are?
When you think about your life, what are some of the lessons that you've learned throughout your journey that help you today?
That your passion and your conviction really can fuel the work that you do, and that you don't even realize the impact sometimes you're making on others. Like that day you described that when you met me, I had no idea that that made a difference in your life, but I knew that we were so excited to be on a campus that has empowered women for generations. And I'm really excited about Monica Eggert
Yeah.
Smith, who's now going to be, oh, she has a new name.
Yes. What is Monica's Lord? Christopher.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she's going to be the new president, and so just watching that institution continue to pour and empower women. We wanted to be on that campus. We had done our conferences at SMU, and they were very supportive as well. But when we think about the work we do overall, I think we wanted to make sure that people had the tool and the toolkits and the skills to be able to use that, whether it's in business or wanting to run for office or giving back to their community or being on boards and commissions, because you don't just wake up one day and say, I want to do this. You really have to walk through those steps, whether it be your resume, finding the right mentor, finding the right sponsor. And we had all those conversations with young women. And then we also wanted to really empower them and undergird them where they were. Some of them were high school students. Some of them were college students. Some of them were able to be volunteers. I also remember at that conference, we were able to work with Microsoft, and they were able to pull out their tablets and help us with registration. I think we had one of the smoothest registrations ever. And so they were an example of a corporation who wanted to partner. So I think it's so important to give the skill sets, have strategic partnerships, and really give the backdrop of empowering young women who want to make a difference, and then being there on the campus of Texas Women's
That's
University.
huge.
Thank you.
And so as you think back through your life, you have gotten bachelor's, 2 masters, PhD. What was the catalyst for your education journey? Because a lot of people would go, I'm done at the bachelor's. What made you decide that you needed to continue?
Well, I come from a family of educators, and they truly believe in education. Fourth generation college student, and college educated, and my great-great-grandfather was a college president in Kansas. The HBCU no
Really?
longer exists.
Wow.
And so mom went to Howard, and so we just have that legacy of education in our life. And I'm probably a flunky when it comes to comparison to my family. My mom was a physician. Dad, got his master's and was in public service in Washington, D.C. for many years, and was
Wow.
part of the Cleveland Summit with Muhammad Ali. And so I saw firsthand my parents getting involved and finding education important. But, also in life, wouldn't it be nice to get a syllabus, right? And we just follow the syllabus.
Oh, God, wouldn't that have been great, especially as parents?
Right. But life is not like that. So I did well with that model, right? I would get the syllabus, and for the most part, I would do well. Now, there are a couple of classes that we had to work a little harder, right? Whether it be operations or statistics or whatever, but we get through them, right?
You get through it. Yeah. And so how did you get to Texas?
Good question. The formal answer is a job. I had a job opportunity to come. I was in Virginia, and I wanted to get closer to the Midwest. I'm originally from Kansas City, and family in Oklahoma, and friends and family here in Texas. So that's the formal, but maybe for personal reasons, and here I am. So I came in 2007.
Oh, wow. So you're a Texan now.
I am.
The expression people say is you couldn't wait to get here. All of us who are transplants,
Right.
we spent our life waiting to get here. It's like,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
But
Well,
once you get here, it's home.
so you've heard of Wolf City, Texas? So my mom's side of the family is from Wolf City, Texas.
Where is that?
It's near Terrell and
Okay.
Sherman and kind of that area.
Okay.
So you can look it up on the map.
Because I've never heard of that.
And then on my dad's side of the family, McGee's had land down between Austin and San Antonio in that area. So I have,
roots here.
generational roots. Yeah.
So Kansas,
Mhm.
childhood.
Mhm.
Talk a bit about what was Margo like as a little girl? Did she want to be what you are doing now?
You know who my real role model was? Marion Wright Elderman.
Really?
I
The
loved
Children's
her.
Defense
Yeah,
Fund.
yeah, I love her.
Her,
Yes. And do you
yes.
remember Austin College had her come and speak, and I had a chance to meet her, and there's this picture. I was just glowing to have the opportunity, but I think she encompasses a lot of the things that we've been talking about. I
She
mean,
does.
yeah, that empowerment and advocacy and really wanting to make our community a better place, and she was really convicted. So she was a role model. But growing up, I was very involved. Dance, tennis, swimming, volunteering, very active in my high school, student government president. So very involved,
So
right?
you were smart and involved.
So that was my thing. Yeah.
That's cool. And so when you were in high school, what were your plans for your life? What were you thinking about Margo and what she was gonna be?
I think I kind of, again, followed Mary Wright Elderman's model. I thought I might have wanted to be a children's defense attorney.
Really?
Uh-huh. So I pursued that for a bit, and then I took my first education class at Emory.
Uh,
And it really blew my mind because then that encompassed everything from history to civil rights to psychology. I mean, I just think it ran the gamut. So I really fell in love with that. It has the major was educational studies at the time.
uh,
And then I wanted to go on and definitely get a master's, and I thought from there I would do maybe some education policy. And then ironically, I fell into, going into student affairs and higher education. So my first job was living in the residence hall at
oh,
Washington
wow.
University in St.
You
Louis.
saw a lot doing
I
that.
did, I did, I did, I did, I did. And so then when I saw that, I really learned about higher education, and I knew if you really wanted to be really involved and proficient, that's when I thought about going and get the doctorate.
Really? And what'd you get your doctorate in?
Higher education, administration with a minor in policy.
Do you miss doing the college work?
I still do it every day with the role I have at Bank of America. So I serve as a philanthropic strategist who consults with many of our colleges and universities and our HBCUs across the country.
And what do you help them with?
We look at all kinds of things, fiduciary review, like reviewing of their bylaws, thinking of their gift acceptance
Oh,
policy,
wow.
assessment of the boards, all things fundraising, whether it be your annual gifts, your major gifts, your planned giving, your legacy giving. And then strategic planning, succession planning, executive coaching. And then we have our thought leadership, our Bank of America study that came out in 2023, where we look at high net worth individuals and really look at their giving patterns. And so we surveyed 1,626 participants and looked at their different demographics.
Wow.
And we define that by net worth of 200,000 to a million,
Mhm.
right? And then their average income would be around 500,000 plus, but their net worth on average would be around 34 million. So we looked at these different demographics and how they give, and many of them care about, giving to faith-based organizations. They really care about the social services, and they care about youth. So when I coach and talk to organizations about fundraising, we reference this study to give them kind of an idea of what high net worth individuals care about.
Are you connecting those high net worth individuals to organizations, in their communities that they can partner with and fund?
When it's appropriate, and
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm working with the family foundations and they're thinking about their grant making, we really talk about their values and their interests and make recommendations and then narrow them down. So definitely.
What you're talking about is a lot of issues that nonprofits face.
Yes.
And you've been in the nonprofit space for a long time. What are the top 3 things that you've seen are challenges for nonprofits?
Stewardship, stewardship, stewardship.
That's 1, 2, and 3. Talk about that. Why is that an issue?
I have so many conversations about genuine, authentic, and timely follow-up, right? So
Mm.
spoke with a college president who got a nice gift over the winter holiday, and I said, "Congratulations, did you pick up the phone and call them?" And she said, "No, we haven't yet." So, just making it a priority to pay attention to those donors, have accurate documentation on when you interact with them, and then follow up with them when you don't need something. Just say, "Hi, we're thinking of you. We really appreciate your involvement."
That's the best advice, Margo.
Because there's nobody likes to feel like you're just being contacted for
For
another dollar,
money,
and
yeah.
we already get those robocalls from all types of organizations. I mean, these high net worth individuals are being, targeted for everything, on the political side, for nonprofits, and so they wanna know that they are really making an impact and a difference with your organization. They wanna know where their money went, so having those videos on social media showing where their money went or sending them an annual report or a nice handwritten note, I think can go a long way.
I often tell people when you get that gift, it should not be 48 hours that you don't turn around and send a thank you note or an email that says, "Hey, I received it. I got that." You're absolutely right. It's a relationship building. And I think for a lot of nonprofit organizations, they forget that at the core of your work is relationships. I often tell a lot of the groups I work with, you don't have a money problem, you have a relationship problem. And if people would steward those relationships well, the results would yield so much for them.
Right. And here's some statistics for you for a planned gift, right? You need to have at least 11 touches before you can even begin to have those conversations. A major gift, 8 touches, right? And so if we are meeting someone for the first or second time and then putting a proposal in front of them and say, will you give? That's not probably the most ideal. You want to listen for the money and really hear what they care about and how they can partner with you. And you may get that, what we call that go away money, that quick money.
Mhm.
But if you want to build those long term relationships where they're investing over time and it's generational, right? And there's a lot that we're seeing with the next generation. They care about the environment and they care about education, right?
Mhm.
And they're investing, they're giving
Yeah.
at almost at 86%. So they really do care and they are investing, at least the high net worth next gen.
What are you seeing in terms of generational differences with giving? Because all of them, in terms of how they want to be communicated to, looks very different.
Right.
What do you notice
Well,
with
they give
that?
by issue, not organization, first of all. So you remember during the pandemic, we
Uh-huh.
saw a lot of youth rise up and speak out and say these are the issues we care about, whether it be social justice, the environment, and things of that nature, right?
Mhm.
And then they are more tech savvy. They're gonna look at a post on TikTok or Instagram or
Or when you're talking, they're looking you up because my kid does it all the time. People are talking and she's like, "Who is this?"
right,
They do. They're
yeah,
they're gonna research who they're
right,
gonna be a part of.
right,
Yeah, and so what do you see when you look at, because we still have traditionalists
right.
who, are still around. Everybody focuses on boomers, and I'm like, there is a generation before them that's still around. But as you look at these different generations in terms of, their patterns of giving,
Right.
are there things that you see that are so starkly different with these generations? And do you see some commonalities with, the way that they give? And we know that they're very interested in certain issues. But are there other things that are coming out that you all are seeing in your research and your contacts
Good
with these
question.
different groups?
Well, the next generation is stated they somewhat care about the social services, right? And
Mhm.
so the older generation really cares about that. So they can meet in the middle with that. But where they're polarized is on religion. We're not seeing that next gen
Mm.
as invested in wanting to give. Like I said, they really care about the environment and education. And they really don't care as much about the aging population, veterans, and when we have disasters. So I was giving blood the other day with the Red Cross, and they said they cannot seem to get the attention of the next generation to give blood. They just really don't have interest. But yet we know our hospitals, and when there's a disaster, they really need blood. So that I think that's interesting where there's a difference. And again, the older generation really cares about that brand, that organization. They really get connected to whether it be United Way or YMCA, but for that next gen, they want to know what is that YMCA doing? Are they
Yeah.
focusing in on education? Are they focusing in on helping the environment? That's when they'll come in. And also, we're also seeing that they're very social. What are their peer group involved in and what are they doing? And they like to get involved together. While I think the older generation really is fine volunteering by themselves. And the statistics talks about that with volunteering, that majority of people volunteer on their own. Also, a little bit with gender, we know women volunteer at a higher rate. But when
Mhm.
we look at that board number, men are still outpacing women in
And why
board
is that?
service. I think it's still kind of considered one of those old bastions of networking and relationship. I mean, I think it's back to your piece on social capital. I don't think women think about going for the power position per se. We know even from politics, sometimes you have to ask women. Sometimes they're not always being asked. They're very comfortable going to sort cans or helping with a luncheon and things of that nature. But we're seeing that change. I think more women are being asked and more women are seeking to be on boards. And we know that organizations that are diversified, right? They
Mhm.
perform at a higher rate,
Yeah.
even on the corporate level.
Yeah, your data is proving that
Yes.
left and right.
Yes.
What are some of the other trends that you're noticing in philanthropy? Because there's this term of trust-based philanthropy,
Yes.
and we're hearing a lot about that. What are some other things that you're seeing that are trends?
Well, I just heard another term, fundraising or relationships or anything goes as fast as the trust, right?
Mhm.
So I think that nothing can really be accomplished without it. And we see that with
Agreed.
donors. They want to trust that the organization's mission is being carried out. And a lot of times people volunteer so they can get to know organizations well, right?
Mhm.
They want to know how they communicate, who they're affiliated with, who's giving to them, right? And so I think what organizations have to really be mindful of is you never know who's watching.
That's so true. That's so true. Social media, all of those things,
Right.
people are watching.
Right. And they also watch how you handle them with their small amounts, right?
Mm.
So someone who has capacity to give a lot of money may only just give 200. The average amount for a planned gift is initially $200. So those $200 could one day be your multi-million dollar donor. I want to share a quick story with you. It just really touched my heart. And I asked the person who shared it with me. They're in a college in Florida. Um, VP of development at a small college was called into a attorney's office and was introduced to a young man. I guess he was not too old, but he said, "I've been watching you, and I really appreciate all the work that you've been doing with the college. I want to learn more." And she said, "Would you like to know or get to know the president?" He said, "No, I don't want people to think that I have money. I just want to get to know the organization." And so they developed a rapport, and on a consistent basis, this VP would provide coffee, go sit with this potential donor, and just have conversations. She was at a golf tournament. She gets a call from the attorney that originally introduced, and the attorney said, "He's passed." And she was blown away. And the attorney said, "He had a trust fund. He is special needs, and his family set this up when he was very young. He was a janitor, right? But he was very interested in learning about the college." She could have easily blown him off, not kept up with the relationship. She didn't even know about the trust. He later on changed his will. It was going to go to several organizations, and it only went to this college because this one woman took the time to get to know him, followed up with him, and cared about him. And so that just to me speaks volumes of you never know who has money, you never know someone's situation, and just genuinely being kind to someone
Can
can
make
make
all
a
the
difference in
difference.
the world.
It reminds me of the scripture of you never know when you're entertaining angels.
Yes, exactly.
And you can miss such opportunity when you don't take the time and value people just for being people.
Right. And think because he was special needs, he was blown off a lot. And he
Mhm.
didn't feel comfortable reaching out to her on his own. And the attorney was a family friend of his parents.
What
It
an
just blew me.
amazing story. But it's a reminder to all of us,
Yes.
not only are we being watched,
Yes.
but the way that we care for people can have real lifetime
Impact.
implications and impact, yes.
You asked about another trend, the revolving door, right? And so when you're trying to build relationships and you have high net worth individuals who are investing in the organization and they make those connections. So organizations may not stop the revolving door, but at least have the process in order to keep their relationships going overall for the betterment of the organization, right?
Mhm.
And so keeping good records, right, in their database and communicating to people by segment, right? Don't just always do the one blast to everybody. There are different people that you want to communicate with at different times, right? And being intentional with your communication, I think, can make a world of difference. And that can sustain the credibility and maintain the relationship, even when they're different leaders or development officers. And I've heard donors say, yeah, we're used to it. We got to get to know somebody again. And they're handing over their stocks, they're handing over their cash, which brings up another point. We're seeing a huge increase in conversation about planned gifts, right?
Mhm.
And the majority of folks' assets are where? In illiquid gifts, whether it be stocks, real estate, ranches, oil and gas. But a lot of times organizations don't think to have conversations with individuals about bequesting or sharing that asset. And then many times organizations think if someone puts them in their will or things of that nature, that they can count on that money and put that in the budget. You can't, because you don't know when someone will
That's
pass,
true.
right? And then, like the story I just shared with you, they may change their mind, right? And then another myth is that people think that someone has to pass in order for there to be opportunities to bequest money. Obviously, there's insurance opportunities, but there's so many different vehicles.
Trust.
Yeah, lead remainder trust or others like that.
Yeah, because I'm, intrigued by the ideal of the revocable or irrevocable trust.
Yes,
And I
yes,
don't think nonprofits are really aware of all these opportunities to
right,
be able to get these sources of funding.
right. And the lead and remainder trusts as well. So, people can take allocations. And we're also seeing with IRAs, they've increased the age limit in which people can draw down their retirement. And so sometimes they don't need that money. And that's a great way to shield their taxes to give. So just some ideas to think about.
It's a lot to think
It is.
about. At the core of it is relationships matter.
Yes, they do. They do. And
They
just
do.
listening,
Yes.
because people are having conversations because they are drawn to the work you're doing, they're drawn to the organization, they want to see how they can make a difference, and they want to bring the people that they care about.
Margo, how do people get in contact with you if they want to use your services? Can they do that? What does that look like?
Oh, good question. Well, it's kind of a unique model. The private client managers with the bank are working with endowments 10 million or more. So I really come in at 10 million and more
So
with.
if y'all don't have 10 million or more, don't call Margo. Okay.
I'll be happy. I'll be happy to be supportive, but foundations, institutions that have those size endowments.
So just follow her on social media.
You're funny. But I'd be happy to share my contact information, and I know you have it as well. So thank you so much for the
Thank
opportunity.
you for sharing all these nuggets of knowledge. This will help so many people to understand you can get money, but you got to listen
Yeah.
and you got to be willing to take time to build that trust
And follow up after they
and
give.
follow up.
Yes.
Margo, thank you for being
Thank
on the
you.
show.
This is a lot of fun.
It was fun. Thank
Yay.
you.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of the Tapestry Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Froswá Drew. And if you want to enjoy more shows like this, check us out on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in.